Dito ka lang. I-on ko rin. Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bicol University Student Council first webinar entitled Beyond Mental Health Awareness, Dealing with Stress and Depression. I am Mark Louis Aller, your University Student Council Public Information Officer, and I will be your host for today. Together with me is Miss Mary Christine. Partner, andyan ka ba?
Yes, partner, I am here live and alive for this first webinar natin na entitled Beyond Mental Health Awareness, Dealing with Stress and Depression. So I am Mary Christine A. Binyas, your interim external vice chairperson. Hi guys!
Hello guys, thank you very much for waiting. Nagkaroon tayo ng konting technical difficulty but makakapag-continue na rin tayo.
Yes.
Kumusta naman kayo? Kumusta naman ang quarantine? Pwede na kayong mag-comment.
Yan, marami na tayong mga nagko-comment actually, partner. Ayan.
Ito, si Sir Nathaniel Osias from Libmanan, Kamsur. Thank you very much, sir.
Hi, Sir Nathaniel. From Kamsur pa siya.
Ito naman, si Ma'am Donabel Fontanilla from DepEd Laguna. Thank you very much po, ma'am.
Wow, nurse pa si ma'am. Hello po sa mga frontliners.
Hello po sa mga nursing students tulad ko. Laban lang tayo.
Ayan, hello rin daw kay Rizal Alizalde. Hello!
Hello to Angelica Velasco Pontillas. Good afternoon din sa'yo. Thank you for watching. Nandito rin si Jaire Faith. Good afternoon.
Ayan. May good afternoon, Mary Christine pa. Hello, Veljo Banyaga. Ayan. Comment lang po kayo for interaction with us. And i-mention nyo na rin yung mga friends ninyo para makapag-nood kayo. Diba, goals yun? Lahat kayong mga magbabarkada. Nandito sa webinar namin, our first webinar.
Good afternoon to Thea De Chavez from Marikina City. Wow, from NTR. Mga
Ito pa nga may from Bulacan pa, partner. Good afternoon, Chanel Milyari. Hello sa mga taga Bulacan.
Hello, Francine. Incoming freshman ng social work ng Bicol University.
Yan.
Welcome to Bicol University.
From CSSP yan.
Good afternoon din kay Miss Floriel Llorera. Hello, Miss Joanne Madrona. Good afternoon din sa'yo. So, partner, kumusta naman ang quarantine mo?
Okay naman ako, partner, and siguro essential talaga to sa atin, lalo sa mga millennial and us na mga college student, itong talk ni ng ating speaker, which is dealing with stress and depression. Since marami tayo mga external factor and mga stress na nangyayari dito sa ating community due to the COVID rin. Ikaw, partner, kamusta ka?
Ako okay naman ako, partner. Wala naman ako masyadong pinagkabisihan. Natuto lang ako magluto, mag-webinar.
Yes, yung mga pag-technicalities in terms of the webinar. Lalo, first time namin to and we really want to have you the best, kumbaga rin. Ayan, partner, nagsisimula na sila mag-comment ulit.
Pa-shout out po from Tagaytay.
Wow, from Tagaytay.
Hindi ko po
Ayan.
ma-mention yung name ninyo.
Ito nga, may from Tarlac pa tayo. Good afternoon din po, Maria Sheila Garcia Medina. Hello po.
Sige, partner. Before we start, may we call our University Student Council Interim Secretary General para sa ating prayer. Again, nandito po ang ating Secretary General para sa ating prayer. So partner, nagkakaroon ata ng mga technical difficulties ang ating mga
Ayan.
kasama ngayon sa ating webinar. Sige, a few
Yes.
reminders lang to our viewers to please follow our Facebook page and share this video para marami ang ating ma-reach ngayong hapon.
Yes, partner. And yung mga evaluation form after this webinar and the talk of our speaker will be sent through the email of those who were able to register for this webinar. Ayan.
Yes, and sa ating mga viewers, comment down yung name and kung saan kayo ngayon.
Yes.
And if you have questions, you may also comment.
Yes.
Hello, Miss Thea de Chavez. Thank you very much.
Kamusta naman kayo? Sige, comment nyo kung kamusta kayo ngayon. Comment nyo sa ating comment section. How are you today? Mga viewers natin dyan. Ayan, may smiley si Lauren Chloe Sambahon Sangki. Ayan, comment
so,
lang
to
kayo.
break the ice a little naman, partner, meron akong mga na-prepare na questions para sa ating mga viewers ngayon. Ito, ang ating first question is, how did you deal with your stress during quarantine?
Man, how did you deal with your stress during
Ito ba, partner,
quarantine?
paano ka nag-deal sa stress mo ngayong quarantine?
Ako actually, more on, muna ako, stay at home and keep in touch with my family and friends through social media muna since, siyempre, bawal rin tayo lumabas-labas. We should stay at home right now, lalo't ngayon may COVID. And ginawa ko actually is I avoid excessive exposure sa social media. So, from time to time, parang nag-isolate rin ako for solitude. Kumbaga, sa bahay lang, nag-drawing, writing poems, ganon, and learning how to cook.
Well, very nice naman, partner. Very opposite sa akin kasi ako ngayon very into social media and internet naman ako
Yes.
kasi dati hindi ako masyadong nakapag-social media pag nag-study, pero ngayon na may pandemic, nag-enjoy ko na mag-social media. Sabi naman ni Kimberly Ann Macas, ngayong quarantine ay relaxed and happy siya. Sabi naman ni Rizel Izalde, by being mindful and proactive, watching webinars related to it helps a lot too. Yes, partner, very helpful yung nanonood tayo ng mga webinar na alam natin na makakatulong sa atin.
And very essential and informative rin ang panunood ng mga webinar. Though wala man tayo sa school ngayon, pero we are learning through these webinars na nasa social media natin. So, go and check sa mga webinars and check nyo rin kami and tune in kapag may mga webinars pa kami and related with that.
Yes, nandito rin ang ating former chairperson and student regent. Sabi niya, happy for you guys. Kudos.
Ah!
Thank you very much, Kuya Ian. Thank you for watching. Sabi naman ni Chanel Malyari, the key is food.
Food is life.
Mukhang nandito na partner ang ating mga kasama. And again, to give us the invocation, may we welcome Nicole S. Mondragon, our USC Interim Secretary General.
Okay, so good afternoon. Let's start our prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear loving Lord, I come before you. I seek your presence as I am empty without you. So here and now, O dear Lord, I ask you to fill me. Pour your spirit into me. I open up my heart and soul to your tender healing and loving mercy. Pour out your spirit, O Lord. Free me, cleanse me, restore me, make me new again. Let your grace work in me, to build my strength and to give me clarity. With this, may we humbly ask you to shower our speaker today, Miss Myra Gahid, of your greatest inspiration, so that she may share the most of their knowledge, heart and soul to their respective topics. May we also absorb the invaluable knowledge, experiences, and put into practice what we may learn today. Fill me with the peace of Christ. Only in you can I receive true rest.
So thank you very much, Nicole. Ito partner, sabi ni Miss Abby Ramirez, ang kanyang ginawa para ma-reduce ang stress ay reading books and learning new things, especially cooking po. Parehas pala
Wow,
kami.
cooking.
Sabi naman ni
Ano
Mr.
po
Dave
ang
Bautista, expressing yourself and influencing through vlogs.
Ayan.
Sabay promote ng kanyang vlog, Terby David Vlogs.
Subscribe kayo guys kay Dave Bautista.
Yes,
Ayan.
partner. At ngayon naman, formally start our program. Let's hear an opening message from our interim chairperson and student regent, Mr. Vince Vibar.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Louis, am I clear?
Yes po.
Eh,
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and Benedicite, hello. So, the long months of quarantine, and to sum up also, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic as a whole, have caused the humanity to experience several means of uncertainty, fear, and anxiety in all forms. So, we feel anxious, we feel fear that we are combating an invisible enemy right now. So, as we stay in our homes, even if we buy necessary food products in the grocery or in any store, as well as even if we just walk outside of our neighborhood, we feel that fear, all the troubles are surrounding us. This invisible enemy, this COVID-19, has catapulted several abrupt changes in our society, starting off with the movement of people, starting also with the order of society in general. So we are experiencing ang mga bagay-bagay na pagbabago na kahit ako ay nabibigla at nagugulat. And of course, I may not speak in behalf of everyone, but um, all these changes may cause us different anxieties and stress in the long run. So people may be facing silent battles that battles that are equally invisible as this COVID-19. So as a simple way of giving back, or rather reaching out to the BUNU community, as well as to the community of online users, the netizens. those that we can reach through this platform. The BUUSC is presenting and offering you the Beyond Mental Health Awareness Dealing with Stress and Depression webinar. So, this is the first webinar of the BUUSC. So, of course, I would like to acknowledge and thank now. I will take this opportunity to thank our really hardworking external vice chairperson, Miss Mary Christine Binyas, for bridging us with a really kind persona, with a really kind soul, with the persona of Miss Myra Gahid. Thank you so much, and I hope we learn a lot in this webinar. Thank you, and good morning. Good afternoon,
Thank you
pala.
very, thank you very much to our USC interim chairperson and student regent. And before tayo mag-start, partner, may another question pa ako para sa ating mga viewers. Ito, how did COVID-19 change the way you go about your day?
Oh.
Comment kayo. Ikaw ba, partner? How did COVID-19 change the way you go about your day?
Siguro sa akin, dito talaga na-realize yung communication with parents rin. Kasi lagi tayong nasa school. And medyo na lesson, di ba, yung mga times natin with our family. So dito, through the COVID and naka-quarantine tayo ngayon, mas marami yung time ko with my family. And I get to know them more during this time.
Oh,
So
very
yun.
nice naman. Ako naman personally, partner, nag-browse ako dun sa mga topics na hindi namin na-discuss last semester. Kasi may mga subjects na alam kong magagamit namin ngayong semester.
Mm.
Kaya, as we go along with the syllabus, at least, alam natin kung ano yung mga i-discuss na next semester. Kaya matutulungan natin yung sarili natin at the same time yung ating mga professors para naman po parehas tayong maganda pakikitungo sa isa't isa and maganda kahit online class or modular class tayo. Ang sabi naman ni Alvin Paolo Razon, more time with my cat.
Ayan, comment rin kayo, how did COVID-19 change your way po? Comment down below kung paano nga ba.
Ikaw ba, partner, animal lover ka ba?
Okay naman. Meron ako actually ngayon na pet. Puppy siya. Tapos, nung nagkaroon kasi ng bagyo sa atin this May, stray dog siya, then kinuha namin siya. And now, he's turning 3 months na. 3 months na siya sa amin, si Shadow. So, yun rin ang pinagkakaabalahan ko actually ngayon.
Ito naman, partner, sabi ni Sir Nathaniel Osias, inabot ng lockdown sa workplace at hindi makauwi sa family. It's very sad na hindi tayo nakakauwi sa families natin kasi kailangan natin isipin na kailangan natin mag-work in order na matulong natin yung family natin during this lockdown. Di ba, partner?
Yes, partner. So, ngayon, essential talaga yung social media. Dito rin natin makikita how important social media is. Kasi yung mga malalayong lugar, they get to connect, syempre, through Messenger, Facebook, Instagram, ganun. So, through message, ganun. Sa mga family natin na kahit man na-lockdown katulad ni Sir Nathaniel Osias, nakakapag-communicate pa rin tayo.
Yun. Thank you very much, partner. Ito na. To introduce our speaker for today, let's welcome our interim finance officer, Mr. Hendrix Jules Bernal. Hello po.
Good afternoon. Our resource speaker for this webinar is a registered psychologist, a registered psychometrician, and an author of 2 poetry compilations. To her, collaborating with people about mental health and anything about psychology motivates her to be committed and consistent in doing her best to inspire the people that she meets. So let us welcome Miss Myra Gahid.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, pasensya na po at wala akong camera. On my end, yun po yung technical difficulties kanina. And so, maraming salamat po sa pag-aantay sa amin at sa inyong tiyaga. Alam kong halos 30 minutes po tayo nag-antay, pero maraming salamat po. And I hope I would give you a good discussion today. And thank you for the Student Council of Bicol University for giving me this opportunity to talk about something that is very dear to my heart, as mentioned by Hendrix kanina, collaboration about mental health and everything under the sun, which is psychology. Basta yun yung topics, andun ako. And so I would share my screen. I have prepared PowerPoint for everyone. So let's see. Um, okay, why can't I? Ayan. Can I ask Louis, please? Louis, help.
Yes
Ayan.
po,
Can
ma'am.
you share my PowerPoint instead?
Sige, wait po, ma'am.
Okay. So, ganito po talaga kapag live, mga kapatid. We were okay during the dry run, and now during the live, you can see how real it can get behind the scenes. And I thank the team for not being too stressed. This is a kind of stress that everyone would experience, especially around technology. There's actually a thing called techno stress. This would be the stress brought about by technology, the use of it. Okay. Ayan. Okay ba? Tayo dyan, Louie?
Yes, ma'am. Inaayos pa rin po ni Louie yung ano.
Okay. If I cannot do that, I'll try to do this instead. So basically, can you see my screen already? Is it good?
Yes,
Please
ma'am.
comment if you can see my screen. Okay. There. Louis, MC, nakikita ba? I've shared
Yes
my
po, ma'am.
entire screen. Okay. Okay. There. I'll just wait for it to load on FB Live. Just for me to check. So this will be my first slide for today. You have received a message. Let's assume that you have received this now. And as an invitation to this webinar, I thank you for accepting that message, this invitation. And so I begin this webinar with a unique introduction with a poem. The poem is entitled My Depression Speaking. I am powerful. I can make her think of everything except herself, of crossing streets, of playing with scissors without a reasonable objective, of staying away from people because she has a train wreck in her head. I can make her feel how everything is unrelated to her, the guilt over people she can no longer meet, or the things she can never have again. How everything she touches, attaches to, can and will untangle any moment she decides to focus on it. I can make her move on the bed she cannot make, in the room she hates to be in a corridor where everyone has their own business and she is inexistent, unreliable. I can make her smile, poster style. She practices in front of the mirror or before she gets out of bed. I am puzzled at how she poses in front of a camera, as if I am not here, as if I do not exist. I can make her laugh, but you would not notice the difference. The sound, empty, pleading. I have taken the life out of her laugh. I have taken the life out of her laugh. I can make her cry, the depth of pain reflected on her pillowcase, the screams her sweaters and jackets have caught 100 times, the insecurities only I can decode. I am powerful. She is not brave enough until, how dare her, she wants to go against me? For many times she fought with me. She pushed me away, shrugged me off her shoulders, as if she can get rid of me that easy. Looking back, she has changed. I drowned all the music. I stole her handwriting. I make pens as if they're 5 kilograms, weighing heavier the longer she carries one. I blur the colors she once loved. I had control over her. Now I don't know what she's doing. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. She attempts to befriend me, to hug me, to console me, to change my form. I may have creeped into areas of her life, but her voice I still cannot shake. Her values I cannot break. Her hope I cannot fake. And this is how we coexist. So this poem is actually written by me. Okay, I wrote this last November 2019 during a difficult time of my life. And as you can see, the title itself is My Depression Speaking. I would want this as the introduction, as the foundation of this discussion, because I am not only speaking from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And so, if ever you receive that poem, if ever you received that message, I wonder how will you reply? Without knowing who wrote it, while I was reading the poem to you, what were your thoughts? Anong iniisip mo? Were you thinking, ang OA naman ng taong to? Napaka-emo, it's too emotional, it's overflowing with negative emotions. It's, hindi ko maintindihan, magulo, bakit ganon? Ang hirap nung experience na yon. Paano nga ba yung nararamdaman niya? Hindi ko siya gets. So after this webinar, I hope you have a clear answer or a comment maybe about how will you respond to that poem. And so this seminar or this webinar rather is entitled Beyond Mental Health Awareness, Dealing with Stress and Depression. So for this talk, I would make it as interactive as possible. So with the help of MC, Louis, Vince, and the other team members, please comment your thoughts, your reactions, your answers in the comment section. I'm also checking the FB Live video. So I'm aware of what's happening via the FB Live video. And thank you for the 100 listeners at the moment. And I gave actually MC or Grace was the one who sent me a message asking me for a video regarding mental health. And I wanted to tell her, pwede bang ano na lang, webinar na lang, because it's easier to interact with people that way. And she said, okay. So we agreed. And I told her to get a photo sa Facebook ko and pumili na lang siya kung anong gusto niya. And I was surprised that she chose this picture because this picture is very significant to me. This picture was actually the time that I presented the poem I read a while ago in front of a small crowd, the first time I did after months of not writing. So napaka coincidental. I'm grateful for Mary for choosing this picture because it reminded me of a time that was very difficult for me. And it also reminded me of a time that I could relate to people better because of that experience. So, as introduced earlier, I'm a registered psychologist, a registered psychometrician. I have two poetry compilations outside psychology. That's my hobby. But as you can see how depression affected me, it actually grabbed me of the opportunity to write again. So I'm still starting to write or to write back again. And so, kamusta? As mentioned by the team a while ago, how are you feeling right now? What are you feeling after having read that poem or after discussing that poem? Do you feel okay? Anong naramdaman ninyo? Nabulabog ba ang emosyon ninyo? May natamaan ba ako sa mga tao or sa audience? What were your reactions upon reading or upon hearing that poem? Anong naramdaman nyo? Comment your reactions in the comment section. I just want to see kung ano yung impact ng tula na iyon. Yan. Sana may naramdaman naman kayo medyo, um, makapagbagbag damdamin. Basta yun, Katagalugan. So, ayun, I hope you're doing well. And let's have a quick assessment. So for this webinar, I would want you to have a pen and paper with you. If you have a notebook, that's better. I will be discussing a lot of things. I would share a lot of things. Thank you for the hug. I would hug you back as well, Miss Thea. So for this quick assessment, just a disclaimer. So the scores on the following self-assessment do not reflect any diagnosis, although I am capable of diagnosing people in regard to psychological conditions. This assessment is not meant for that purpose. It would just be a tool for us to check kung ano nga ba yung stress level ninyo. So don't worry, this assessment has 10 questions. So you can put your answers on a sheet of paper or on a notebook if you have one beside you. I'll give you a few seconds to get a sheet of paper and a ball pen or a pencil for you to use for this quick assessment. And for the team as well, you may do this activity and let's discuss your results later. So 10 questions for this quick assessment. Okay, sa mga ready na po, click ready sa comment or type ready so that I can see if may mga ready na bang magkaroon ng quick assessment about their stress level. So comment ready if you're ready so that I can go on with the next slide. Just count 10 seconds to do so. Wow, I'm receiving hearts now. Thank you, Sydney. Okay, so we're ready. Let's go to the first question. In the last month, referring to July, or you may consider the last week of June, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? So be honest as possible with your answers. So 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, very often. And 4, very often. So I repeat the question. In the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? 0 would be never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. And 4, very often. You may just write the numbers. No need to copy the question. So for the students na sanay magkopya ng sagot, you just, kopya ng sagot, sorry, kopya ng question, you just write your answer as a number. We go to question number 2. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life? 0 for never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Question number 2. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life? 0 for never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. I hope you write your responses on a piece of paper. You might not want to share them on public, but if you're comfortable sharing your answers in public, you may do so. 3. In the last month, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. In the last month, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Fourth question. in the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. For the fourth question, in the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Fifth question, halfway there. In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. In the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. And 4, very often. Question number 6. In the last month, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. And 4, very often. In the last month, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? 0 for never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Seventh question. In the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? 0 for never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. In the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? 0 for never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Eighth question. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of things? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Eighth question. In the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of your life? Top of things, rather. 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Second to the last question. In the last month, how often have you been angered because of things that happened that were outside of your control? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. In the last month, how often have you been angered because of things that happened that were outside of your control? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Last question. In the last month, how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Last question. In the last month, how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? 0, never. 1, almost never. 2, sometimes. 3, fairly often. 4, very often. Okay? Tapos na ba tayo? Okay, Louie, Vince, MC, have you answered? Okay, I hope the team has answered. We now go to checking your perceived stress level. Ayan. So let's interpret your answers, guys. You may turn on your video cameras for this. Okay, so disclaimer po, hindi po ito diagnosis. This is just a tool for us to check your perceived stress level. So for questions 4, 5, 7, and 8, change the scores like this. So if your answer is 0, make it 4. If your answer is 1, make it 3. If your answer is 2, it remains as 2. If your answer is 3, it becomes 1. If your answer is 4, it becomes 0. So this scoring is only applicable to questions 4, 5, 7, and 8. Okay, I give you a few seconds to do that. So applicable lang po ang rule na ito sa questions 4, 5, 7, at saka 8. Okay? Na-convert na ba? Louis, Hendrix? Thumbs up kapag tapos na if your answers are converted. Okay? So after converting or changing your scores for questions 4, 5, 7, and 8, add all your scores to get the total. Hindi dapat lumagpas sa 40 yung scores ninyo. So add all the scores to get your total score. Hindi dapat siya lalagpas sa 40. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to add your scores up. Pag lumagpas po ng 40, may error po tayo. Okay? So the interpretation of your scores would be like this. Kapag ka 0 to 13 ang total scores natin, your perceived level of stress is low. Pag 14 to 26 naman, it's moderate. Kapag 27 to 40, you have a high perceived level of stress. So ulitin ko po, kapag yung score ninyo is between 0 to 13, you have a considerably low level of stress. 14 to 26, moderate level of stress. And 27 to 40, you have a high perceived level of stress. Okay, so I can see comments. 11, wow, low stress. That's good. Okay, I hope that after this webinar, those who have high perceived stress would become moderate or low, and those who have moderate stress would become low stress, and those who are low stress would maintain their low stress level. Okay, 26. We're getting a range of numbers right now. So Stress by Dave Willis, going to the description, is someone trying to resolve every situation solo. Meaning, lahat ng problema sa mundo inaako niya at gusto niyang isolve ng parang siya ay si Superman or si Superwoman or Wonder Woman if you would want her as your superhero. So the condition or the technical definition of stress actually would be the following. So it is a response to any change, challenge, or demand. Okay, lahat ng problema, lahat ng difficulty na na-experience nyo ay ang response dito would be stress. So hindi nyo matatakasan ng stress, walang araw na hindi ka masistress, and of course, stress is inevitable. So stress would be a physical or an emotional tension brought about the change, the challenge, or the demand that you're currently facing. Physical tension refers to headache, migraine, stomach ache, ayan. So we'll get more onto that later. Emotional tension, umiiyak ka na lang, nagagalit ka, naiinis ka, nafo-frustrate ka. These are your emotional tension. Now, there are actually three types of stress. The first one is acute. Acute stress is saglit na nararamdaman mo yung stress. Nawawala rin siya kapag nawawala din yung stressor. For example, kanina, before we started the webinar, we had technical difficulties. That is acute stress for me because I do not know how to work on the webinar without actually being connected to the internet. So since nakakonect na ako sa internet, okay na ako. That means acute stress lang yung naramdaman ko. Nawala din yung stress ko dahil solved na yung problem. Episodic acute is similar to acute, however, mas matagal siyang nangyayari, mas madalas siyang nag-occur. For example, as a student, sanay ka na nagsasubmit ng requirements mo on time, pero dahil sa internet connection at sa difficulty sa pag-connect sa Wi-Fi or sa data, nahihirapan kang mag-send ng requirements mo for all your subjects. Madalas kang nasa stress, that becomes episodic acute. Ngayon, kapag hindi natin na-solve ang episodic acute, if we do not know how to manage your stress at this level, it might eventually lead you to having illnesses or sickness. Which leads me to the third, chronic. Chronic stress, ito yung mahirap ng alisin. nasanay na yung katawan mo na laging nasa alert level. Your automatic response to stress would be, or automatic response to change, challenges, and demands would be stress. So, matagal na to sa iyong katawan, nasanay na yung katawan mo na laging naka-alert level. Essentially, ito na yung nagli-lead sa'yo to have concerns regarding heart issues, stomach issues, especially ulcer. Ayan, nakakalimutan ng kumain kasi sa sobrang stress mo, nagkakaroon ka ng high production of gastric acid, kaya ka nagkaka-ulcer. Sometimes it also causes stroke, okay, and mental health disorders or mental health concerns. So, some symptoms of stress. So, ito yung mga usual na symptoms. Hindi ko sinasabing lahat ng ito dapat meron ka para malaman mo na stress ka. But if you have experience of, or if you're currently experiencing some kind or some of these symptoms, baka nasa high or nasa moderate level na tayo ng stress na dapat na nating i-manage. The first is general aches and pains. I have mentioned a while ago that muscle pain, headache, stomach ache is an example of physical tension brought about by stress, increase in or loss of appetite. Kaya tayo nagkaroon ng tinatawag na stress eating kasi imbes na solusyonan yung problema, nauunang response is pagkuha ng pagkain. Or on the opposite naman, nawawalan ka ng gana kasi ayaw mo ng lasa ng pagkain. I have friends na kapag ka-stress sila, their sense or their sense of taste would be lessened. Hindi nila nalalasahan ng matamis, ang maalat, ayan. So, dinadagdagan nila yung asukal sa kape or kaya yung asin sa ulam, ganyan. So, problems related to sleep. Madalas, it would be lack of sleep. So, 1 to 2 hours, yun yung usual mo. But on the other end of the spectrum, sobra naman sa tulog. So, more than half day na natutulog kasi ayaw mong asikasuhin yung demand, yung challenge, or yung change. Exhaustion. So, feeling mo pagod na pagod ka lagi, lutang ka, okay? You often find yourself daydreaming, weight gain or weight loss essentially. So, pagka kulang ka sa nutrition, nutrition month pala ngayon guys. So, if you do not follow a good diet, nawawalan ka ng ganang kumain, essentially you would experience weight loss. Pero kapag stress eating naman ang iyong coping mechanism, you would essentially experience weight gain. So, coping with stress, I would discuss 3. The first is reduce your stressor. Kanina sa introduction nabanggit ni Mary that she has less experience or less exposure to social media. So, this is an example of a reduction of stressor. So, kung para sa'yo, stressful ang social media, stressful ang news, stressful ang panonood ng TV or panonood ng Netflix, okay? Sa sobrang violent ng mga shows or emotionally driven, you may want to reduce the stressor because you have no control over ano yung lumalabas sa TV, ano yung lumalabas sa social media mo to an extent. So, reduction of stressor would be being aware of what you consume. That would be in terms of food, media, what you read. Yeah, basically anything that you take in to your mind. This is also focusing on things that you can control. So, hindi mo man ma-control yung nakikita mo sa social media, but you can unfollow, you can block toxic people, you can, unfriend yung mga tao na post ng mga bagay na hindi ka naman interesado, okay? Without actually being rude to them, that would be reduction of stressor. Another idea for reduction of stressor would be to check or reevaluate your interpretation of the stressor. Kasi paminsan, baka yung interpretation mo lang yung nagbibigay sa'yo ng stress. For example, online learning or distance learning, modular learning, Zoom meetings, itong pagkakandak ng webinars. This would be a part of the new normal. It might be a wrong interpretation for you na babalik pa tayo sa dati as exactly as possible. So that's, I think that's not possible anymore at this point. So adjusting to the new normal would be a reinterpretation, a reevaluation of how you see or view a certain situation, a certain problem, or a certain demand. Next is release of tension. Release of tension happens or is characterized by three things. First is physical release of tension. That could be via exercise, doing house chores, gardening, okay? Any activity that would make you spend energy, that is physical. Next would be emotional. So talking to a friend, talking to a psychologist, posting on social media, venting, ayan. Ranting paminsan, but sometimes there's such a thing as toxic ranting or toxic comments, toxic posts. So this might be for the one who posts is emotional release of tension, but for some people, it would be emotional stressor. So depende yan sa kung saan ka. Ikaw ba yung nagpo-post ng nakaka-stress na bagay or ikaw yung nakakatanggap ng nakaka-stress na bagay. That is emotional release of tension. The third is creative. So we see the youth today being a part of this type of coping. Creative, they start their own business, they create their pages, they become vloggers, they release their podcast, they support a lot of movement, a lot of volunteer groups. So they learn to innovate and collaborate with people. This would be your creative sense of releasing tension. So sometimes it can also be seen sa hobbies mo, pagsusulat, pagsasayaw, pagkakanta, ayan, pagpipinta, pagdodrawing. Sinasabi ng iba wala daw silang creative bone sa body nila. Paminsan nagbabago rin ito sa definition. It can be the way you cook, the way you fix your things, the way you arrange your room, your furniture in the house. So creativity can be generally seen everywhere. And the third is to temporarily remove yourself from the situation. So, eto yung kapagka nasa bahay ka ta's nag-away kayo magkakapatid or nagkaroon kayo ng sagutan, sa bahay, you go to your room, okay? Ilayo mo muna yung sarili mo sa sitwasyon para wala ng continuation nung stressful na situation. So, once kumalma na kayong lahat, have a good conversation, discuss nyo ano yung points nyo, and then from there, you would have a more mature discussion about what happened, why this happened, what do we do now, temporarily walking out, okay, or staying away from the people who makes you feel toxic, who makes you feel stressed, would also be a good coping mechanism. Another example is sleeping or taking a nap, and also meditation. So breathing exercises, yoga, ayan. So you have guided meditation sa YouTube, available yan. You also have a lot of practitioners for breathing exercises and other mindfulness practices online. You can search them kung gusto ninyo. So these are your coping mechanisms with stress. And so, after that, actually brief lang yung discussion ko ng stress because I know most of you are familiar with it. You have probably attended a lot of stress management webinars, how to cope with stress during the new normal. And so bulk of my discussion will actually focus on depression. So here I found an interesting picture in the internet. So credits to the owner. Pati yung picture kanina sa kamusta na slide. Okay, so hindi po sa akin yung mga pictures na yon. The credits would be due to the owner. So comment what you see sa picture na to. Anong nararamdaman nyo kapag nakikita nyo tong picture na to? Or when I present this photo, how do you feel? What are you thinking of? Kindly post them sa comment section and let's see kung ano yung version or interpretation ng audience natin sa nakikita nilang larawan o letrato. So I'll give you a few seconds to comment. What do you see in this picture? I find this interesting because it shows a portion of a story of people who are experiencing depression. Okay, it's fading. Thank you, Sir Dave, for that answer. It also shows a portion of people who do not experience depression but are interested to know about depression. Relief, losing herself, consumed. Okay, these are good interpretations. Okay, what else do you see? So you might see actually positive things or good things and negative things. Overthinking. Okay, that's a good one. Slipping away. Okay, thank you, Relene. Okay, so while you comment on those, on your reactions, disappearing, losing a part of you, exactly. So depression, this is one of my favorite quotes that would describe depression to someone who does not experience it, who has never experienced it, and who does not currently understand it. Depression is being colorblind and constantly being told how beautiful the world is. So para sa mga hindi nakaka-experience ng depression, para sa mga taong nagsasabi na ang depression ay gawa-gawa lang, na ang depression ay nasa utak lang, imagine niyo po ito yung experience nila. So, hindi sila makapag-identify ng colors. They do not differentiate red from blue, from green, from yellow, from orange. And you constantly tell them that the sky is blue, flowers or roses are red, that the chair is brown. Okay? Yun po ang experience ng depression. Now, usually sa tanong na kamusta, ito ang automatic na sagot ng mga Pilipino. Okay lang naman ako. Ikaw, kamusta? Okay, so naging automatic response siya kasi ayaw na natin patagalin yung usapan or hindi natin gustong pag-usapan yung ating nararamdaman. However, when you jumble this response, you can actually get the following. Sakto lang, okay? You can find those letters in the response. Sakto lang, chill lang, okay lang. Okay? Mamaya ko na sagutin yung tanong mo. Hindi ka kasi sanay matanong kung kamusta ka. Or kaya, kamusta nga ba ako? Pag may nagtatanong sa'yo, usually na tatanong mo rin sa sarili mo, oo nga no, kamusta kaya ako? Anong ginagawa ko ngayon? Okay pa ba ako? OA lang ako. This would be the lower half of the group. When someone asks them, okay lang naman ako, or when they say, okay lang naman ako, the real thought is, I'm overacting, I'm exaggerating, okay, this is not real, walang okay. You can actually find that in the sentence, okay lang naman ako, ikaw kamusta? Walang okay, pero sinasabi mo okay lang. Or, ayoko na, pero sinasabi mo okay ka lang. I'll give you a few moments to digest the responses and to see how deep depression can go, how deep this mental concern is, and how alarming that there is a high number of youth experiencing this but are not actually diagnosed with depression. The youth and also adults, young adults, Filipinos in general, okay, there's a spike in statistics of experiences of depression during the quarantine, during this pandemic. And imagine someone who has depression receiving these responses. Nag-iinarte ka lang, ang hina mo. Kulang ka sa dasal, hindi ka kasi naniniwala sa Diyos. Kulang ka sa prayer. You do not believe in a God. Wala ka kasing sinasamba. Or nasa isip mo lang yan. Guni-guni mo lang yan. Panaginip mo lang yan. Nakakahiya ka. Anong sasabihin ng ibang tao kapag nalaman nila? Anong sasabihin ng kapitbahay pag nalaman nilang ganyan ka? Okay? Essentially, imagine yourself being told all these things. You might even think, baliw na nga ata ako kasi walang nakakaintindi sa akin. Hindi ko dapat sinasabi sa ibang tao ito kasi wala namang nakakaintindi. Kulang kasi ako. Nasa isip ko lang to. Dasal lang to. Ang hina ko. Ang arte ko. Okay? All these things would be thoughts of someone experiencing depression who has also experienced being given stigma. And nangiinarte lang ako, ang hina mo, kulang ka sa dasal, nasa isip mo lang yon, nakakahiya ka. All these things are a part of mental health stigma. What stigma does? Okay? Ang nagagawa ng stigma, ang iyong response na siguro dati ginamit mong sagot. Ngayon, na re-realize mo hindi pala tama yung response ko. Or nababasa mo or ginagawa ng kamag-anak mo, kaibigan mo, kakilala mo, sa mga taong malapit sa'yo or mismo sa'yo. Ito ang nangyayari pag may stigma. Misinformation. Ang akala ng mga tao yung depression romantic siya. Kasi nakikita mo sa movies, ang cute naman yan. Savior siya kapag ka may depression ka, ikaw yung sinesave. Ikaw yung princess sa tower. Ikaw yung may Prince Charming na nag-aabang. Okay? Ikaw yung character na favorite ng lahat. It is misinformation. Depression doesn't do that. Lack of information. So dahil naniniwala ka na ang depression ay hindi totoo, hindi mo na siya gustong alamin. Hindi mo na gustong makinig sa mga taong nakaka-experience ng depression. Ayaw mo rin siyang pag-usapan sa bahay, sa school, sa opisina. Hindi ka rin naniniwala sa mga mental health advocates, sa mental health practitioners, or sa mental health professionals. And essentially, dahil kulang ka sa information, kulang ang kaalaman mo sa depression or sa mental health, wala ka rin or kulang ka din sa awareness at sa openness. Takot kang pag-usapan kasi natatakot kang baka ikaw yung pinag-uusapan or natatakot ka na baka yung mga pinaniniwalaan mo dati ay hindi na pala tama or natatakot ka na mali pala yung paniniwala mo all along and that the way you treated your friends, your family members, and people in society who are experiencing mental health concerns would actually be wrong. Ayaw kasi ng taong nagkakamali. We dislike being proved wrong. We dislike committing mistakes. We easily dislike actually saying sorry or being apologetic, being compassionate towards people na nagkamali tayo. And so kapag may misinformation, lack of information, lack of awareness and openness, eto na. Avoidance of discussion, takot kang pag-usapan, okay? You might feel anxious, kinakabahan ka habang naririnig mo ako nagsasalita about it, okay? I don't really mind if you have reactions or responses sa comment box, you know. I discuss a lot sa Q&A. I will allot a lot of time for the Q&A because I know you have a lot of questions. You already have assumptions and judgments toward people na nakakaranas ng depression, toward people who would want to seek professional help, toward people na nagsasabing, hindi ako okay, pwede mo ba akong tulungan, pwede mo ba akong samahan? And my discrimination na. I can see the number of viewers going down. Okay? I expected it quite. So, may discrimination ka na kasi ayaw mo ma-prove wrong as mentioned. You brand these people. Okay? You brand them as weak. You brand them as someone who has no God, someone who is not religious, someone who has no knowledge of themselves, someone who lahat na. Okay? All of your descriptions that are not necessarily important and helpful for people who experience mental health conditions, you say them. That would be online or offline. And so, ang mga tao na nakaka-experience ng depression, pinipili na lang nila maging tahimik. Okay? They choose to be silent because they feel lonely. They feel isolated. They choose to be silent because they feel like people do not listen or people cannot listen. They feel lonely, they feel isolated because no one is talking to them. They feel like their voice is not being heard. So tatahimik na lang sila. Until sa lamunin na lang sila ng depression, okay? Uubusin na lang sila ng depression as mentioned by the comments a while ago until they lose themselves, they lose their identities, and essentially they would find no meaning in the world and they would harm themselves or they would harm other people. This is what stigma does. And this is how we fight other people from getting the help that they need, from getting comfort and the love and the care that they need because of stigma. So depression, let's go to the big shadow or the big elephant in the room na hindi pinag-uusapan sa mga bahay, sa schools, at sa workplace. Actually, according to American Psychiatric Association, depression is a common and serious medical illness, okay, that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. So depression is not just in your mind. Depression has an explanation in the medical field. So American Psychiatric Association na po nagsasabi. Sa American Psychological Association naman, depression is the most common mental health illness. Okay? You can see here that depression negatively affects how you feel. Pakiramdam mo, wala kang kwenta. Pakiramdam mo, wala kang future, the way you think. Okay? Iniisip mo, hindi ka kailangan ng mga tao. Iniisip mo, mas mabuti na lang kung wala ka sa mundo. And how you act. So, ayaw mong kumain, natutulog ka na lang parate, ayaw mong kumausap ng tao. This is what depression does. Okay? These are some of the symptoms of depression. So, if you think that you feel or may checklist ka na at check ka sa mga bagay na to, please ask help from a mental health professional, from a mental health practitioner. Okay? Depression symptoms are the following. Hindi ko sinasabing lahat ng ito dapat meron bago ka magkaroon ng depression. However, these are very highly observed sa mga taong may depression. Okay? Especially feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness. Okay? Wala nang bukas para sa akin. Weight changes, significant weight changes, either weight loss or weight gain. Lagi nagagalit, irritable. Okay? May mga sakit sa katawan, sakit sa tiyan, lagi na lang may migraine. Okay? Nagkakaroon ng problema sa focus. So kung dati, lagi kang nakapag-submit ng requirements mo on time, whether work man yan or kaya school, ngayon, nagde-daydream ka na lang, lutang ka, hindi mo magawa yung trabaho mo. Okay? Lack of concentration. Dependence. Sometimes you go to smoking, cigarettes, tobacco, you go to alcohol, God forbid, or knock on wood, you go to drugs. Okay? So, dahil ayaw mong maramdaman yung sakit, nililipat mo siya sa alcohol, sa paninigarilyo, at sa drugs. Okay? Fatigue. Wala ka namang ginagawa, pero feeling mo lagi kang pagod. Tulog ka naman all day, hindi ka naman kumakain, pero pagod ka. This is one red flag of depression. Insomnia or sobra sa tulog. So, hindi ka makatulog kasi ang dami mong iniisip, or tulog ka ng tulog kasi wala ka namang ginagawa kapag kabangon mo, or wala namang sense pag bumangon ako. Ano pang gagawin ko? That is your context. Guilt feelings. I take up too much space. Okay, I heard one of the clients before saying this. Feeling ko, ma'am, I take up too much space. I think the world is better without me. Okay? You feel isolated. Walang nakakaintindi sa akin. Ako na lang yung pinoproblema sa bahay. Lahat ng tao dito gumagastos para sa gamot ko, para sa therapy ko. Wala kaming pera, pero ginagawa ng paraan ng mga kamag-anak ko, ng parents ko, ng mga kapatid ko. And essentially, one of the big red flags is suicidal thoughts. The world is better without me. Paano kung wala ako? Okay? Ano kayang feeling na mawala na lang? Okay? If one of your friends even jokes about this, okay, this is a red flag, guys. Please seek help. Kahit joke lang yan, kahit post lang yan, kahit picture lang yan na medyo kinabahan ka pag nakita mo, kamustahin mo na siya. Okay? Contact automatically a mental health professional. Kung hindi man kaya, contact a friend or a family member of that person to check on the person. Okay? Kahit pabiro lang yan. Uy, tol, alam mo ba, ganito yung presyo ng kabaong. Okay? Even if it's just a joke. Or kaya, paano kaya pag di na ako nagising, no? Ano kayang feeling? Okay? Just that thoughts, that words, ibig sabihin, sumisigaw na po sila ng tulong. Okay? And these are the worst things that you have to say to someone who experiences depression. Ang dami mo namang pwedeng ikasaya. Maganda naman yung bahay mo, may pamilya ka naman, mayaman ka naman. Buo naman yung pamilya mo, may kuya ka, may ate ka, may magulang ka, nakakapag-aral ka, nakakakain ka 3 times a day. Bakit ka depressed? Okay? It's not good to say those kasi ini-invalidate mo yung feelings niya. So, ibig sabihin, mali pa rin nararamdaman ko. Ibig sabihin, hindi pala talaga totoo yung nararamdaman ko. Okay? Ako na po nagsasabi, all emotions are valid. Whatever you feel is valid. Nararamdaman mo malungkot ka ngayon? Tama yan. Nararamdaman mong galit ka ngayon? Tama yan. Totoo yan. What we do, however, about these emotions, that is our responsibility. So kung malungkot ka ngayon, anong pwede nating gawin? Kung galit ka ngayon, anong pwede nating gawin? Kung naiinis ka ngayon sa pinag-uusapan natin, anong pwede nating gawin? That is where we stand. Okay? Hindi rin pwedeng sabihin na, pero alam mo lahat ng tao may bad days. Baka ngayon lang yung bad day mo. Okay? Depression is not just sadness. It is beyond sadness. It is loneliness. Ito yung feeling na may mga kaibigan ka pero pakiramdam mo wala ka sa kwarto. Pakiramdam mo wala kang kausap pero may mga kasama ka. Okay? This is depression. Kasama mo yung pamilya mo, nasa outing kayo, pero hindi mo maramdaman yung sarili mo. This is depression. Okay? Nasabihin pa ng iba sa'yo, yung iba nga hindi makakain, ikaw nadidepress ka, mayaman ka naman. Ba? Lahat ng luho mo nandyan, lahat ng kailangan mo napoprovide ng parents mo, ba't ka nadidepress? Okay? You do not have to say those words. Mas lalo ka nakakasakit. Okay? It's all in your head, it's not real. I said that a while ago. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Hindi ganun kadali yun. Kapag sinabi mong stop feeling sorry for yourself, isipin mo na lang, na-try na nilang gawin yan, pero hindi pa rin effective. Okay? Don't be dramatic. Hindi po drama ang depression. Okay, ako na po nagsasabi bilang psychologist, hindi po pagdadrama, hindi pag-iinarte, hindi lang kaatehan, hindi kulang sa pansin ang pagkakaroon ng depression. Okay? At hindi mo rin pwedeng sabihin na just think positive. Okay? Just be happy. Okay lang yan. Kaya mo yan. Okay? It's not something you have to say to someone who experiences depression. Just think positive. Ginawa na nila yan. Trinay na nilang gawin yan. It just doesn't work that way. Snap out of it. Na parang pagka nag-snap ka ng finger mo, wala na yung depression. Okay? It doesn't happen that way. Depression takes a lot of things out from that person. Magnanakaw ang depression. Ninanakaw niya ang kasayahan mo, kaligayahan mo, okay? Even your thoughts, your emotions, yung mga dati mong enjoy gawin, ninanakaw ng depression. So how to help someone who has depression? Instead of saying the words that I posted kanina, listen and not hear. Pakinggan mo sila. Hindi yung papasok sa isang tenga, lalabas sa kabila. Okay? Makinig ka. Madalas ang kailangan lang nila pakikinig. Hindi sa kailangan mong mag-reply or mag-respond or isolve yung problema nila, kailangan nila na makikinig ng taong nandyan lang. At naniniwala sa kanila at kaya silang intindihin. Second, empathy. Empathy is being or experiencing the shoes of other person, experiencing the situation of the other person without forgetting that those shoes are not yours. So pakiramdaman mo, ano kayang pakiramdam ng friend ko, ng kapatid ko, ng kaibigan ko, ng kamag-anak ko na may depression. Pero wag mong kakalimutan na hindi ikaw yung may problema. Okay? Kasi ang tendency nito, ikaw yung tagasalo ng problema, ikaw tagasalo ng emotions, bibigat siya. Okay? So, wag nating kalimutan na alagaan yung ating sarili. Next is extend the hand or sometimes the shoulder. Paminsan iiyak na lang yan bigla. Okay? Tabihan mo lang siya. Extend your shoulder, extend the hand. Anong kailangan niya? Tsaa, gatas, kape, ice cream, cake, okay, pansit, ano pa bang gusto nyo? Bicol Express, okay? Yan. Bigyan niyo sa kanya. Uy, okay lang ba sa'yo na libre kita ng ganito? Or gusto mo ba timplahan kita ng tsaa? Okay? Simple things like this is a big way for people. Acceptance and honesty. Accept that the condition that your friend, that your family member, that your loved one is having is real, and be honest to yourself as well. Okay? Maging honest ka na nararamdaman niya ito. So alam kong mas masakit na nakikita yung loved ones mo na nasasaktan, pero maging honest kayo. Kapag hindi na kaya ng pagsasalita lang or pakikipagkwentuhan lang, seek the help of a professional. Next is offer an alternative perspective, but this is, I give you caution, kaya siya may asterisk. Ipaalam niyo muna sa mga tao. Okay? So, sa kaibigan mo na nag-open up sa'yo, kunyari pinagkwentuhan ka niya, alam mo ba, pakiramdam ko wala akong kwenta, pakiramdam ko lahat ng problema sa bahay ay tungkol or dahil sa akin. Okay? Huwag kang magbibigay ng solusyon. Ipaalam mo muna sa kanya. Pwede ba akong mag-suggest? Pwede ba akong mag-recommend? Kapag sinabi niya na okay lang, tsaka ka magbigay ng alternate perspective. Pero hanggat hindi niya sinasabi na pwede kang magbigay ng recommendation or hanggat hindi niya sinasabi na ano kaya sa tingin mo, huwag kang magsasabi ng side mo. Kasi ang mangyayari dyan, feeling niya, magiging sentro ka ng usapan na nabaliwala lahat ng sinabi niya sa'yo. Okay? So ask for permission first. And the most important part, be present. Be there for that person. Okay? Be there, be present, be aware of your emotions. Kapag hindi mo na kaya yung sinasabi sa'yo, yung ina-explain sa'yo, ask help from a professional. Okay? Kung kaya mong samahan siya or kung kaya mong ikaw ang mag-send ng first message, kung nahihiya siya, okay lang. Do that for your friend. Do that for your loved one. Be present. But also do not forget that ikaw din, kailangan mo ring alagaan yung emotions mo at yung thoughts mo. Okay? So now, dito tayo sa MHP, Mental Health Professional. Ang mental health professional ay pwedeng psychometricians, ito yung mga nakapagtapos ng bachelor degree sa Pilipinas ng psychology. These are people who are able to conduct some assessment or testing. Pwede rin silang gumawa ng test or research. Psychologists, kami po yon. We conduct tests, assessment. We also diagnose. We conduct therapy. These are your psychologists. Pero hindi po kami nagre-reseta. Ito po ang trabaho ng psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are medical doctors. They are the ones na nakapagtapos ng medicine. Sila po yung nagbibigay ng reseta para sa gamot. So ang ideal po ay partnerships among these practitioners or professionals. Fourth would be your guidance counselors. Guidance counselors are practitioners na nasa shoutout po sa lahat ng RPMs. Shoutout din po sa psychologists, psychiatrists, and guidance counselors. Guidance counselors are professionals na nasa schools usually. So sila yung mga nasa guidance office. They offer their services usually to students. Okay? Sometimes to teachers. They are also encouraged to put up their clinic outside the school kung gusto man nila mag-practice. We also have clinical social workers, okay, or social workers in our context who help in DSWD, okay, and other private or NGOs, yan, and psychiatric and family nurses. Okay, if you want to learn more about them, you might read on them. They have specific roles and specific responsibilities in the field at hindi pwedeng mag-shift or mag-salitan or magpalitan ang mga professionals unless they are licensed to do so. Okay? So in my case, I am a psychometrician, I am a psychologist, but I am not a psychiatrist. So hindi po ako pwede magreseta ng gamot. But there are psychiatrists who are actually psychologists. Pwede silang mag-therapy, pwede rin silang magreseta ng gamot. Okay? Another MHP is mental health partner. So I use an acronym. Pwede po namin kayong maging mental health partner. So bilang kami na professional, konti lang po kami ngayon sa bansa. So the last statistic I think that I found is one guidance counselor for every 200,000 students, if I remember it correctly, or roughly that would be one psychologist for every 100,000 Filipinos, kung tama yung naalala ko. Okay, so imagine niyo naman po. So kung magiging ganun ang statistics natin, ako lang mismo, dapat ang kliyente ko ay 100,000 Filipinos. Hindi po namin kaya yon. Okay? So kailangan namin ng partners, kailangan namin ng advocates. At bilang partner at advocate, kailangan po namin ng isang proactive na partner. Okay? Accommodating na partner. Yung hindi po ire-reject yung ideas ng mga professionals, hindi ire-reject yung mga people na may mental health concerns. Responsive, yung mga tutugon sa pangangailangan. Okay? Magkakandak ng voluntary work, magpo-post ng real or kaya na fact check na information. Okay? Who are transparent, yung sasabihin nila yung totoo at hindi lang yung mga magandang pakinggan. Okay? And also non-judgmental. We want partners, we want advocates who would not put people in boxes. Ay, yan, may depression yan, baka awayin ka lang yan, or baka saktan ka lang yan, okay? These are judgmental statements. We need partners and advocates who accept everybody, okay, based on their humanity, based on their human rights, who are empathetic and who are responsible, okay? So we need partners, we need advocates who would refer people to the right people, who would refer clients to the right practitioners, to the right professionals, okay, to the right organizations. And the last MHP, okay, besides having mental health professionals and mental health partners, we need mental health programs. Okay, mental health law was signed years ago, but it's less than 5 years ago. Okay, meron na tayong mental health law, and the mental health law covers all Filipinos. We also have a directive for CHED, for DepEd, to create mental health programs in schools, and we also have a DO already for DOLE, for workplaces and companies to have mental health programs in their workplaces for their employees. Okay, so you have the right to demand and to ask for a mental health program. Sa mga working po, sa mga empleyado, and also for employers, please create a mental health program. It is important that your program should be progressive. Okay? Huwag na po natin ibalik yung mga dating problema, yung mga empleyado natin na umalis na. Dapat yung tinitingnan natin is for the future. Paano natin matutulungan yung empleyado natin? Paano natin matutulungan yung mga estudyante natin para maging productive, para maging efficient sa ginagawa nila? Your program must be responsive. Hindi pare-parehas ang problema ng mga schools at ng mga kumpanya. There is a difference between public and private organizations. There is a difference between online companies and offline companies. BPOs or business process outsourcing, mga call center who has high stress levels because of their work, okay? Demand ng trabaho. Dapat sinasagot ng mental health program nyo yung stressors ng mga empleyado ninyo and even your administration, okay? It should be organic. It should come from your clients. It should come from your employees. Makinig kayo sa empleyado. Kung ang problema nila is the work schedule, if their problem is the bosses, if their problem is the workspace or the work environment, bullying, discrimination, sexual harassment or harassment in general, take care of your employees. Okay? Because employees and students would eventually make your program and your school or your company successful. Walang kumpanya pag walang empleyado, wala ring eskwelahan kapag walang estudyante. Goal-oriented. As mentioned, dapat progressive yung konteksto ng programa natin. Dapat meron tayong goal. For example, marami nag-a-absent sa school, marami nag-a-absent sa workplace. Bakit kaya? Bakit ang taas ng tardiness, ang taas ng absenteeism, ang taas ng nag-aawol sa mga teachers natin, sa mga workers natin? Wala nang traffic ngayon because you do not require them to go physically to your workplace, pero hindi pa rin sila nagla-log in on time. Ano yung problema? You have to find out the problem to identify your goal. And be realistic. So, hindi pwede na yung mental health program mo is very idealistic. Nakuha pala siya sa Americans or nakuha siya sa program sa Europe or sa ibang lugar. Nakuha siya sa ibang kumpanya na hindi naman parehas sa inyo. So for example, your company is a call center. You get a mental health program from a construction company. That will not work because iba ang demands ng construction sa call center. The same way as ibang demands ng college, university, or ng universities sa high school or sa elementary at preschool na eskwelahan. Okay? Dapat realistic kayo. Let's start from level 1. Huwag niyong bibiglain yung empleyado nyo or yung mga estudyante nyo about the mental health program. Because kapag binigla nyo sila or kapag nabigla sila, they would shut off more. hindi sila magiging open sa pagiging part ng programa, hindi sila makakahingi ng tulong, and essentially, you're not solving the problem. Dapat accessible, hindi pwedeng namimili ka. Dapat walang VIP treatment. The mental health law covers all Filipinos regardless of socio-economic status, regardless of religion, regardless of location. Okay? Dapat accessible yung resources na meron ka. Kung kaya mo magkaroon ng in-house psychologist, in-house guidance counselor, in-house psychiatrist, the better. Pero pag hindi kaya, tap on professionals to do the work. Okay? And lastly, your program must be multidimensional. Hindi pwedeng stress at stress na lang lagi ang pinag-uusapan nyo sa workplace because mental health covers a lot of things. Mental health covers productivity, interactions, relationships, your workplace ethics, management. Okay? It also covers working with other people. It also covers families. It covers community service. It covers a lot, basically. And your mental health program should not be isolated to focus on one problem only for the entire program. You may have a lot of problems or concerns, but you must have, they call this, solutions or possible prevention allotted for each consequence or allotted for each concern. And so you have received a message the way I start the webinar. This is how I end it. You have received a message, and this message is no longer a poem, but it's already a short message. We need your help in implementing the mental health law. So hindi dahil sa kami ang mental health professionals at kami ang mas nakakaalam or mas may knowledge sa mental health law, ay kami lang ang pwedeng magtrabaho. Kailangan po namin ng tulong ninyo. We need all the advocates, the possible partners that we can get to implement the mental health law and to make mental health services accessible to all Filipinos, regardless of their religion, their race, their location, and their socio-economic status. And so my question would be, how will you respond sa aming paghingi ng tulong para ma-implement ang mental health law? Ano ang magiging sagot mo? Ano ang pipiliin mong role? Isa ka ba sa kasama namin na pag-uusapan ng mental health? Or isa ka ba sa mga patuloy lang na mabubuhay at manonood na lang na may ilalaban ang ibang tao at nasa um, tawag dito, sidewalk ka na lang? Okay? So thank you for listening. For questions, clarifications, for projects and collaborations, I am very open to those, especially related to mental health. You may contact me via email at myra.g.gahid@gmail.com. And so I open the floor for questions. I bring the mic back to Louis, MC, and Vince. By the way, guys, we offer free consultation. I am currently a part of PsychStart, Psychological, Academic, and Art Services. So you may send us a message. So our next free consultation is on August 30. That would be the last Sunday of the month. You may book your appointment now by sending us a message or by sending us a text via the number shown in your screen. Okay, I'll give you the details then. I'll allow MC and Louis to post the details sa page nila afterwards. Ayan, limited slots lang po ito. And first come, first serve basis. And so, yon. Let's have the Q&A, Louis and MC.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, guys.
much,
Yeah,
Ma'am
I'll
Myra,
exit my
for a
screen.
very heartfelt discussion.
Yes,
Ayan.
partner. Ayan.
Yes, ma'am. So, sa ating mga viewers, the floor is open for questions. You just comment your question together with your name and your location para ma-mention natin siya.
Comment
Sige,
na
ma'am.
kayo, guys.
While waiting sa mga comments nila, ma'am, ako ma'am, may questions din ako.
Okay.
Sige po, ang first question ko po is about depression in men and in women.
Okay.
Meron kasi tayong stigma na depression is always or lagi siyang nangyayari sa mga babae lang. Ano po
Mhm.
yung masasabi niyo dito, ma'am?
In researches, recorded talaga na mas marami sa babae. Pero, um, sa konteksto ng patriarchal societies and patriarchal communities katulad ng sa Pilipinas, na ang lalaki ay bawal mag-expose ng emotions, bawal umiyak, bawal magdamdam, bawal magtampo, dapat strong ka lagi, macho ka lagi, okay? I think that the statistics are underrated or underrecorded. So, depression may equally affect males and females. However, iba yung magiging translation niya. Usually 'pag babae, the depression would be known kasi may mga kaibigan siya na kinakausap. Pero sa mga lalaki, it might be seen sa substance abuse. So, laging umiinom, laging naninigarilyo, okay? Kasi hindi niya alam paano i-express yung sarili niya eh. Naturuan ng mga lalaki sa Pilipinas na bawal umiyak, okay? Dahil kapag umiyak ka, bakla ka or bading ka, okay? This is not going against LGBTQ community. It is addressing a patriarchal society that does not allow men to express their emotions. Okay? For women and for our audience na babae and those who ascribe to the gender of female, okay? Wag nating hayaan na yung mga kalalakihan sa ating bahay at sa ating community ay maramdaman na nag-iisa sila. Okay? Allow them to cry, allow them to express themselves because they are human beings. Okay? So, yan yung
Yes,
asaran sa
ma'am.
classroom eh, na parang, uy, si ganito, ang gwapo-gwapo niya, pero iyakin, bakla ata siya, okay? Don't even use that context to judge another person because hindi nakaka-measure ng pagiging or ng kalalakihan mo ang pag-express ng iyong sarili. Okay? I actually admire people who express themselves, whether you're male or you're female. The mere point that you're honest to yourself about what you feel, that makes you become a better human.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
May question na po pala tayo from Mr. Dave Bautista.
Okay.
Ito po ang tanong niya. Paano mo maisisave yung tao without affecting your own mental health?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you, Dave. It's actually asked sa aming mga professionals lagi, no? They're like, Ma'am, how do you do that? How do you give therapy without you being hurt or without you being affected? I think it's part of professionalism. Sa konteksto ng mga mental health professionals. Pero sa konteksto ng ordinaryong tao na let's say hindi versed or hindi gamay ang therapy, hindi gamay ang psychological first aid, masisave mo yung tao na hindi naapektuhan yung mental health mo sa pagtatanong, kamusta ka? The mere point of asking a question, how are you? And then allowing the person to answer the question, kwentuhan lang kayo. Mahilig ang Pilipino sa ganyan. Kahit na taxi driver or tricycle driver, jeepney driver, no? Kwentuhan mo ng buhay mo. Pero may MMK pa rin tayo, di ba? So mahilig ang Pilipino sa kwentuhan. And paano masisave ang tao without affecting your own mental health? I guess there's no such thing as a shield or a protection from it. It's more of allowing yourself to feel the emotions and managing what you do with your emotions. Kasi kapag may respeto ka at may pakialam ka sa isang tao, bibigyan mo siya ng space na kailangan niya without allowing him or her to feel na wala nang may pakialam sa kanya. Okay? Give him or her space kung gusto niya. Pero alam mo dapat kung kailan ka papasok. Kasi paminsan, merong mga times na kailangan na pala niya ng tulong, hindi niya lang alam paano sabihin. So magtanong ka, kamusta ka? Out of nowhere, pero yeah, kwentuhan is a big thing. I hope that answers your question, Dave.
Ito naman po yung ating next question
Okay.
from Miss Rizel Elizalde.
Okay.
Bakit po madalas nagiging initial reaction natin ang maging close-minded kapag may nag-open up sa atin?
Good. That's a good question. Thank you, Rizel. The usual reaction, natatakot tayo sa mga tao na nag-open up sa atin because first, hindi natin alam masasabihin. We often, Tagalogin ko na lang ha, usually kasi pinalaki tayo na kapag kinausap tayo, dapat may response tayo. Dapat may sagot tayo. Okay? Usually sasabihin ng adults, wala ka bang respeto? Sumagot ka. Okay, that is the context. And so pag may nag-open up sa'yo at hindi mo alam yung sasabihin mo, feeling mo hindi ka na nakakatulong. Feeling mo, wala naman akong matutulong sa taong na 'to, so ba't ko pa siya kakausapin? Pero in the context of mental health, madalas ang pakikinig is a big thing. Hindi mo kailangan sumagot para i-solve yung problema niya. Kailangan niya ng makikinig sa kanya at magsasabi sa kanyang, andito ako para sa'yo. Kaya tayo nagiging close-minded kasi una, takot tayo na wala tayong masagot. Pangalawa, hindi natin alam ang sasabihin natin. Pangatlo, natatakot tayo maapektuhan kasi baka mamaya parehas tayo na nararamdaman sa kanya. Okay? So I think, I hope that that would answer your question, Rizel.
Yan, thank
Thank
you
you,
po,
ma'am.
ma'am. And
Our
this,
next question po
Go.
is from Florian Llorera. Paano po pag may nagsabi sa iyo na isang tao na kailangan mo daw ng legal counsel if mas madami ang pinagdadaanan niyang mabigat?
Okay, so this is a tricky situation. Okay, so thank you, Miss Floriel. Um, Respeto is still the first thing kapag may nag-open up sa'yo. Respect the space, respect the story, respect the person. So pag may nag-open up sa'yo, for example, si Mary nagkwento sa akin, I would allow her to just tell her story. And then if I tell her, pwede ba ako mag-suggest? Sabihin niya, okay. Sabihin ko, sa tingin ko kailangan mo ng professional help. Tapos ayaw niyang tanggapin, okay lang yon. Okay? Huwag nating ipagpilitan in all contexts, okay? Huwag ipagpilitan ng ayaw, kasi pag ayaw may dahilan, pag gusto may paraan. Okay? Respetuhin natin yung desisyon nila because it is still their willpower to do so. Kapag ready na silang tumanggap ng tulong mula sa professional, offer mo lang yung sarili mo. Kapag ready ka na, sabihan mo lang ako. I still respect your decision. Thank you for sharing your story to me. Okay? I care for you. I love you. Okay? Other comforting words. Pero wag mong sasabihin na, uy, kasi kailangan mo ng ganito. Alika na kasi. Okay? Mapilit yung dating. Hindi mo siya binibigyan ng respeto to feel kung ano yung nararamdaman niya. Okay? So, wag pa rin nating ipilit kung ano yung, kahit na alam natin na kailangan nila. And sometimes it's very difficult, especially para sa amin na professionals. Alam namin na kailangan nila. Pero kapag kaayaw, hindi namin pinipilit. I hope
ayan,
that
thank you so
answers your
much po,
question.
ma'am. And
You're
meron pa
welcome.
po tayong another question from Asmen Balindong Tahir. Sabi niya
Okay.
po, how can we help those person na nakakaranas ng depression who
Okay.
don't want to be treated po? They only want to be isolated.
Okay. For this type of cases, I would assume that this has been going on for quite some time kasi isolation na tayo eh. So sa isolation, ito yung time na medyo magiging makulit tayo. Not makulit na every second nandun ka, okay? Tanungin mo siya, kumain ka na ba ng breakfast mo? Kamusta ka na? Alam mo ba yung ulam ko ganito? Ito yung usual. Kapag wala kayong techniques or what do you call this? Training for therapy. So, ito yung usual pagka-friend mo. Di ba pagka-friend mo, gusto mo lahat alamin tungkol sa kanya. Okay? May pakialam ka sa kanya, gusto mo siyang tulungan, pero ayaw niya or hindi niya pa kayang tulungan yung sarili niya, just be there for support. Okay? So, kunyari, si Louie, napapansin si Mary parang medyo hindi nata nagchat-chat to, hindi ako sinisin. Tawagan ko nga. Okay? So, pag tinawag, ay ayaw. Puntahan ko nga sa bahay. So, since may pandemic tayo, hindi pwedeng gawin yon. I'll ask a friend. Tanong mo nga si Mary kung kamusta siya, baka galit lang sa akin. Okay? You become creative and you become innovative to ask people about how they feel. Because just to let them know na may nag-iisip pa rin sa kanila. Kasi the more na patatagalin natin na feeling nila isolated sila, oh, okay lang pala, wala namang may pakialam sa akin, ganito na lang ako forever. Or ganito na lang ako, magkukulong ako sa kwarto, hindi na lang ako kakain, okay? Kasi wala naman nag-text sa akin. Ba't ko sila ite-text? Busy naman sila sa buhay nila. Pabigat lang ako. Okay? Pag naririnig mo yung pagsasalita ko ngayon, it might sound very weird, but as I mentioned, it's coming from personal and professional experience. I've also experienced this, okay? I've also tried isolating myself from my family, from my friends, because I think that I would be a burden to them. But essentially, when I sought for help, when I asked the psychiatrist to have a session with me, okay? And just to give you a background, ang hirap para sa psychologist, especially para sa akin, okay? Ang hirap para sa isang mental health professional na humingi ng tulong sa kapwa niya mental health professional. Okay? So, yun yung konteksto kung saan ako nanggagaling. And dun ko rin na-realize na may mga tao palang may pakialam sa akin, hindi ko lang nakikita. And yun na yung kailangan nila. Wag natin silang itulak palayo. Hatakin natin sila papalapit. Okay? So, the same way na papalapit na sila sa tawiran, hatakin mo sila sa sidewalk. Bring them back to what you often do. Yung paminsan di masyadong obvious. Uy, napanood mo na ba si ganito? K-drama, let's say, ang bonding yung K-drama. Alam mo bang may bagong episode, may bagong series si kung sino mang K-drama artist yan. May bagong episode ang ano ba? Na masikat ngayon, hindi ko alam. May bagong movie si Alessandra at saka si Paolo Contis, okay? May bagong drama si sinong vlogger man yan, okay? Bring them back to their comfort zone and slowly ask them, okay? Huwag sila ipilit, but, ease into their comfort zone. Yan.
Yes, thank you po, ma'am. Ayan. Meron pa po tayong question dito from Lyndon Luis Rivaldo Grino. Nung
Okay.
grade 10 po ako, merong isang NGO na kumukuha ng students na ito train para
Okay.
maging peer counselor.
Mhm.
May mga workshops and seminars na kinakonduct para po sa amin. Is
Okay.
it advisable po to have peer counselor?
Okay. So peer counselors are examples of our mental health partners. So they are already advocates kahit wala pa silang lisensya. So usually nangyayari ito sa high school at saka sa college students. You might actually have one sa inyo sa Bicol University, no? Peer counselors are good. As long as maayos yung training, as long as the counselors know kung ano yung trabaho nila, at as long as they also know their boundaries. Okay? Kasi paminsan na nangyayari dyan, they take a lot of problems, hindi nila ma-manage yung sarili nilang emotions. Okay? So bilang peer counselor, alam mo na dapat ang role mo ay bilang support, pero kailangan mo ring ihiwalay na ikaw rin dapat, mahal ko yung sarili ko, may pakialam ako sa sarili ko, kailangan ko kumain ng maigi. Ayun. So you still have to balance. Just like what I said in a previous webinar, turo sa amin, sa aming field, you cannot give what you do not have. So kung wala kang pagmamahal sa sarili mo, madalas hindi mo siya nabibigay ng buo. Pag wala kang pakialam sa sarili mo, wala ka rin pakialam sa iba. Okay? That's the usual context. So kung hindi mo naintindihan yung nararamdaman mo, paano mo iintindihan yung ibang tao? And it is advisable to have a peer counselor, especially if you find the need to have one. Kasi ito yung usual na first aiders kapag ka hindi pa kayang gumastos para sa psychologist or sa psychiatrist. So I hope that you seek or you have a peer counselor, Lyndon, and if you're interested to be a peer counselor, please be one. We would be excited to have you as a part of that field.
Thank you very much, Ma. Our next question is, how can we deal with toxic positivity?
Toxic positivity. We always see this on social media, okay? Every day, sa feed ko, lagi may ganyan. Okay ka lang, you'll be okay, you'll be fine. Actually, it's not always the case. Emotions are founded on a spectrum. There is a negative spectrum and a positive spectrum. Okay? So, hindi lagi na bilang tao, nandun tayo sa positive side. And this is a context of toxic positivity. Na lagi mo sasabihin na masaya ako araw-araw, hindi ako nagagalit, hindi ako naiinis, hindi ako nagtatampo, hindi ako nalulungkot, okay? It's as if you're debunking the idea that you're not human because a human should essentially experience emotions. At kasama sa emotions, ang sadness, ang fear, anger, okay? Dealing with toxic positivity, if you can unfollow, unfollow. Pag hindi pa rin carry at pinipm ka pa din ng toxic positivity, block them. If it's still not possible, create a new account. If not, deactivate your account, okay? So some of my friends actually are on mental health leave ngayon, social media leave. So they've been naka-deactivate yung account nila for more than a month na, and we communicate via another application, let's say WhatsApp or kaya Telegram. Okay, not advertising, but you have a lot of social media platforms. Sometimes Instagram or Twitter can be toxic as well. Okay? So you have a choice on kanino ibibigay yung oras mo, yung energy mo. Okay? Kung anong relationship man ang papasukin mo. That goes out for hugot, mga hugotera at hugotera dyan. Okay? You have a decision to make. You always have the choice if you want to stay in the toxic relationship, in the toxic work environment, in the toxic friendship, basically in any toxic relationship or commitment. Tamaan wag magalit, mabagong buhay. Okay? Shout out to my students who are
Yes,
listening.
ma'am. Ito naman, ma'am, sabi niya, salute to the very dynamic resources speaker.
Thank you, thank you.
That's actually my mother.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Ito naman ang susunod nating question, ma'am.
Mhm.
How about sa grandparents? How to deal with them, lalo na pag nawala ang isa sa kanila? Ayaw kumain.
Okay. So, kung tama yung konteksto ko, pakiklaro, Miss Donabel po. One of your grandparents lost his or her partner and yung naiwan is ayaw kumain. Tama po ba? If that's the correct context, we are looking at the grieving process. Ang grief po kasi iba-iba sa mga tao. Minsan ang grief nakikita natin sa burol, nakikita natin sa lamay. Paminsan nakikita natin siya after a few months. Hindi yan iiyak sa burol, hindi yan iiyak sa lamay. Pero after 2 months na na-realize niyang wala na pala yung partner ko, tsaka lang bubuhos lahat ng emotions. Okay? So there's a process in grief, and the first one really is denial. Okay, it's dabda, it's denial. It's the next stage is anger. The next stage is bargaining. Next stage is depression, and the next stage is acceptance. Pag ayaw pong kumain, suportahan po natin. I-explain po natin sa kanila kung bakit kailangan natin kumain, na kailangan po nating mabuhay para suportahan po natin yung sarili natin. Minsan ang ginagawa, although sa iba effective, sa iba hindi naman po gugustuhin ng kamag-anak natin na nakikita niya tayong ganyan. Mas gugustuhin po niya tayo nakikita na healthy. Okay? Yun yung term minsan, healthy, hindi masaya. Kasi hindi mo pwedeng i-force yung sarili mo or yung ibang tao na maging masaya habang nag-grieve siya. Okay? So just the mere point na healthy siya at gising siya at inaalagaan niya yung sarili niya, dun muna tayo. Tsaka tayo unti-unting papasok sa happiness. Okay? So, yun po. Hindi naman po natin gugustuhin na magkasakit ka. Yan. So, yun yung magiging statements natin kapag ayaw nilang kumain.
Thank you so much po, ma'am. So, meron pa po
Yes.
tayong another question
Mhm.
from J. Ann Gotti sa Obligado. Here's his question po. How to make someone feel that you empathize with him or her?
Okay. I still believe that empathy is a skill. It takes practice because you have to expose yourself to emotions. Hindi ka pwede magkaroon ng empathy kung mismo ang emotions mo hindi mo naiintindihan. So, for example, hindi mo, sa ganito ang nangyayari ngayon, no? Kung kanina, sa technical difficulty ay 30 minutes na po kayo napag-antay namin dahil sa technical difficulty at nainis kayo, nagalit kayo, okay? Pero inantay niyo pa rin kami, okay? Yung frustration na yon, hindi mo siya ma-explain sa ibang tao kung hindi ka nagstay para sa webinar. Gets po ba? Hindi nyo ma-explain sa ibang tao na, ay, alam ko yung feeling na yan. Nagstay din ako para sa isang webinar, 30 minutes nga ako nagantay eh. Kasi, nagstay ka. So, may explain mo sa iba kung paano yung pakiramdam. Pero kapag nag-leave ka na, after ng 10 minutes pa lang na standby kami, hindi mo ma-explain sa ibang tao yung patience, yung frustration, yung pakiramdam. So, that in itself is empathy. And by saying na I'm here for you, okay? You are safe. Lagi ko sinasabi sa mga estudyante ko to. You matter, and for everyone in the audience, for Louis, for Vince, for Grace, for Mary, for Hazel, for Hendrix, okay? You matter, you are important, you are worthy. Okay? And always, always remember, you deserve the love and care that you give the world. So wag mong papaniwala ng kahit sino sabihin na wala magmamahal sa iyo, wala magmamahal sa akin. Okay? Pag on the verge of breakup na kayo, on the verge of whatever problems kayo, siya lang kasi nagmamahal sa akin ng buo at ng tapat. Okay? Hindi totoo yon. Okay? Mahugot kasi ako sa klase. So, alam ng mga estudyante ko yan. Dahil dun lang sila nakikinig. Okay? So, yun. Sabihin mo lang sa kanila that you matter, that you are important to me, I care about you. Gets na nila yun. I hope I answered that.
Yes. Ito naman ma'am, si Miss Abigail gusto niya naman magpasalamat sa very informative learning session na dala po ninyo ngayon ma'am.
Thank
Still
you.
listening
Thank
siya
you.
from Ifugao State University.
Hi. I might conduct a talk sa Ifugao soon or via a page. So, please watch out for that. Thank you, Miss Abigail.
Ito naman po ma'am, may tanong din si Miss Geralu Atendido.
Okay.
How about po if you have new friends? Tapos nag-struggle ka pa po, maging comfortable or lumabas sa comfort zone mo dahil hindi mo pa naman sila nakakasama ng matagal ang mga new friends mo. Thinking na baga di kanila ka-vibes or gusto, what should I do po?
I see. I would assume if you are a high schooler, Jeralu, or a first year college, I'm not so sure. It is because you're in the context of friendship. Usually pag adults yan, hindi na nila nagiging problema because they don't really care about who their circle is. What should you do? You do what you're comfortable with. If this group of people do not understand kung bakit kailangan mo ng space, it's not your group of people. Because the right people will get you, lagi ko sinasabi, get you kasi maintindihan ka nila in the context at kukunin ka nila sa trabaho because you understand your potential. So if ever you're a graduating student, it might be the case. The right people will get you. So wag ipagsiksikan ang sarili sa maling relasyon, sa maling circle of friends, at sa maling workplace. Because pag tama yung circle na napuntahan mo, hindi mo kailangan itanong yung tanong na yan. I hope that helps.
Ito naman po ma'am. From Mrs. Stella May Calio, medyo serious yung question niya.
Okay.
I want to share my thoughts din po. Months ago po, grabe po yung anxiety ko. I had posters on social media and Facebook to be specific. Then ginagamit niya po yung name ko para manira ng tao. Then because of that po, sobrang bothered ako to the point na gusto ko na lang i-distance yung sarili ko sa lahat. Sobrang naapektuhan po yung social life ko to the point na parang ayoko nang kumausap na ng tao. Dati po akong jolly pero ngayon po parang nawala na yung jolliness ko. Normal po ba ito ata ang gusto niyang itanong?
Okay. So for Mrs. Stella, it must have been very difficult to have posters, to have people use your name to destroy other people. That's very concerning. It's very stressful. We understand your pain. And thank you for actually being on Facebook to watch this webinar and being on Facebook, even though it causes a lot of stress to you. If you're open to a consultation, you might want to send a message. I would want to address your concern in a professional context, but your response is normal. Okay, normal lang that you would want to distance yourself from people who do not make you feel safe, from people who do not make you feel comfortable. But for this to go on and to affect your daily life, it's something that is bothersome and it is a red flag. So if you would be interested for a professional session, I would want you to send a message to Louis and the page. I'll send you the link to our Facebook page so that you can schedule a consultation if you're interested.
Yes. Ayan. Meron rin po tayong another question, ma'am, here from Jane Valladolid. Kapag nagbigay ka na po ng advice sa isang tao na nag-share sa'yo, how can you make sure na makakatulong yun sa kanya or
Mhm.
mas lalong makakadagdag ng burden na nafe-feel niya?
Okay. So going back to my context a while ago, before giving advice, ipaalam mo muna sa kanila. Now, for example, if Louis asks advice from Mary, and Mary says her piece, okay, it depends on Louis kung tatanggapin niya yun o hindi. That's Louis' free will. Now, kapag nagsabi na si Mary ng advice niya, tapos na rin yung part niya. Hindi niya na rin role na usisain kung ginawa ba ni Louis yung sinabi niya, kasi doon din dadagdag yung stress eh. Kapag si Mary, aalalahanin pa niya kung ano yung desisyon ni Louis sa problema niya, siya lang stress, di ba? Paano pag si Louis may problema sa love life? Tapos si Mary nagsabi na ng advice. Pero si Louis hindi pa rin nakinig, mahal niya eh. Mahal niya eh, di ba?
True po.
Nagbigay na ng advice si Mary. Si Mary lang stress guys, 'di ba? So pag sinabi na ni Mary at binitawan na niya yung advice na niya, okay, nasabi na niya yung piece niya, okay na ako, nasabi ko na yung gusto ko kay Louie, bahala na siya sa desisyon niya, kung ano man ang gagawin niya, wala na ako doon. Okay? Separate yourself from the issue after you have given your piece because you still give respect to the decision of the person you are talking to. So, binibigyan mo pa rin ng respeto, ng power, ng authority para mag-decide para sa sarili niya yung kaibigan mo. Alam kong nakakapagod guys, may mga ganyan talaga, mga marupok, di ba? May mga friends tayong ganyan. Marupok, ayaw makinig. Pero di ba, bilang kaibigan, we have to say our piece, but we also have to be straightforward sa kanila. Maging honest tayo sa kanila. Sabihin mo, uy, parang nakailang advice na ako sa'yo, parang sirang plaka na ata ako. Diba? If it becomes too stressful for you, you be honest with them. I think they would appreciate that as well. Because relationships that are not founded on honesty and communication, they wouldn't work. They wouldn't last. I hope that answers
Thank
your
you very
question.
much, ma'am. And
Yep.
last question po. Ito naman galing to sa isa kong friend. Am I sad or am I depressed?
Okay. Sad is temporary. You may feel sad while listening to the poem a while ago and you feel better right now because we're talking about a lot of stuff. It is depression if you have felt lonely, if you have felt alone for more than 2 weeks. So ang code namin is for most of the time for 2 consecutive weeks at pakiramdam mo wala kang kwenta, um, wala kang silbi, pabigat ka, nagigilty ka sa nangyari sa mundo, nangyari ang COVID dahil sa akin, may pandemic dahil sa akin. Pag 2 weeks or more mo nang nararamdaman to, it might be a red flag and a sign for you to seek for help because of depression. So 2 weeks guys. So pag last month mo pa nararamdaman yan at hanggang ngayon, kahit after this webinar, wala ka pa rin nararamdaman na spark of inspiration or creativity, you might be encountering depression.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much po, Ma'am
Okay,
Myra,
thank you,
for
thank you, thank you.
answering our questions for today. Sige, ang susunod naman po, we are gonna formally close our event today with the message from our USC Interim External Vice Chairperson, Miss Mary Christine Binyas.
Ayan. So, good afternoon again. So, on behalf of the Bicol University Student Council, I would like to thank Ms. Myra Gahid for being our resource speaker for this webinar entitled Beyond Mental Health Awareness, Dealing with Stress and Depression. Ma'am, you've been very kind to me since day one, and it really shows your passion and how mental health awareness is important to you by accepting our invitation to be the resource speaker for this webinar. So we really appreciate that, ma'am. Thank you for bringing your expertise and experiences for this talk. And this wouldn't be successful without you, ma'am. So thank you very much po.
Thank you for the
Also,
opportunity.
yes, but also we would like to thank everyone for your participation. We really appreciate you making time for this. Put an effort to wait for several or 30 minutes, you know, to listen to maybe most of you take down notes during the talk. and interact with us through the comment section. There may be challenges and reschedule that happen that we have to deal, but still, you are here with us. So we really appreciate that. I would like to grab this opportunity also to give some reminders for everyone. After this webinar, evaluation form will be sent to those who were able to register for this Beyond Mental Health Awareness webinar. E-certificates will be given to those who will finish filling in the evaluation form. Um, Also, please tune in our Facebook page, Bicol University University Student Council, because there will be more talks, more videos, or even free services like online consultation. So catch up us through our Facebook page. Again, thank you very much, and we are all looking forward to see you on our next webinar. And about that also, i-promote na rin siguro natin yung next nating webinar. Um, for the next webinar of Bicol University University Student Council in partnership with Infinity Daraga, CW TAC, Legazpi, and 825 Flavorites, we present to you the CARE Conference 2020. It is a free virtual conference for young people on mental health and academic success in this new normal. So our next webinar will be held on August 9, 2020. That will be 9 o'clock a.m. to 3 p.m. via live stream on Infinity Daraga Facebook page. So you may like their Facebook page. Reminder, this is a free admission with e-certificates. So we are all looking forward to see you again on our next webinar. Thank you very much for participating and listening to our talk. Thank you.
Yes po. Again, thank you very much, Ma'am Myra Gahid from Baguio City sa pagiging speaker natin ngayong hapon.
Yes, thank
You're
you,
always
Thank
ma'am.
you, Miss
welcome.
Myra. A
Thank you,
round of
thank you, thank
applause for
you.
Miss Myra.
Yes, again, this is Mark Louis Aller, your USC interim PIO, and your host for today. And my
And this is
partner
Mary
is.
Christine Vinyas, your interim external vice chairperson.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
much.
We are signing
Thank you,
off.
Miss
Thank
Myra.
you so much for participating.